Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Global Radio and TV Live, and I am your host, Dr. Ravi. The number to call is 469 307 1642 1642. Well, I would like to thank our viewers in the USA and also in the order of viewership in following countries: India, Morocco, Taiwan, Canada, Sudan, Japan, Ukraine, China, Korea, and Iraq. And we have received a number of emails from other countries. So if I haven't heard from you, please let us know. We would like to add you in that important list. Well, all topics here in Global Radio and TV Live are either controversial or conspiracy theories. Now, many people have been telling me that the 60s were a big conspiracy period. Now, we are going to find out a little bit more about it today. I am a scientist, don't like subject anything that is not based upon good science. We have a lot of controversial topics that we talked about in this show, primarily the existence of God, sighting of UFOs and aliens, JFK assassination, US debt. They're all conspiracy theories and controversial. Of course, two extremes were firm believers and extreme skeptics. Now, today's show deals with an author who has spent his formative years during the most turbulent and exciting decades of American history, the 1960s and 70s. Great strides were made in that decades. The Camelot, Civil Rights Movement, Woodstock, Moon Landing, Mafia Godfathers, LSD, Vietnam, Beatles, Jim Morrison, and Led Zeppelin. Our featured guest today is James Hill, who survived those tumultuous years and lived to tell us all about it in the form of two books. He has written two books, and true to any prolific writer, the novels are of a different genre. One about the mafia, and the other one about sci-fi. Well, James, welcome to Global Radio and TV Live.
I thank you, Dr. Ravi. I'm glad to be here. And yes, I have survived the 60s and the 70s, and that was quite a doing. Uh, I grew up in a very rough area in New York City called the South Bronx. I'm sure many people have heard of it because it had made the news and was featured in many stories and movies throughout the years. And it was a very rough neighborhood to grow up in, especially during the 60s.
Exactly in 60s. Tell us a snapshot of what was around you, where you lived, what kind of problems you encountered in the 60s growing up in Bronx.
Okay, the neighborhood I grew up in was the 41st precinct,
Okay?
which is a police area, and how they broke it up. So you would have different precincts, which are what the police would be assigned to. And the 41st precinct was known as Fort Apache
Okay.
uh, because every night it was like cowboys and Indians. It was a war zone, pretty much. And you needed a gang to even leave your block. You needed a gang to pretty much leave your house. We lived in apartments, and you were pretty much in the gang that was in that block. And some gangs stretched for many blocks. My gang was pretty small. We had 5 to 10 people in it, but you needed all 5 to 10 people to even go across the street to the store.
So
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 if you
it,
can imagine that, yes.
so let me ask you this. So this should have been extremely hard on young children growing up. Not trying to get how old you are, but what was your age at the time in the 60s growing up in Bronx?
Uh, I was in my I was under 10 when I was in the South Bronx. When I grew
Okay.
up in the South Bronx, I was there from until I was about 12, and
Okay.
then I further up in the Bronx and moved into what was predominantly an Italian, Irish, German neighborhood, and predominantly ran by the mob.
So, okay, that brings up an interesting point. You were in the other part of the Bronx where you had the Italian, Irish, German people or mafia living there. And how did you even be able to move in that particular neighborhood, knowingly that they would know right away as you walk down the street, they know you are not an Italian or German or Irish?
Oh yes, it showed up right away. When I moved up to the neighborhood, actually my mom lived there back in the 30s, 40s,
Okay.
around the 40s. She grew up there as a little girl, and so neighborhoods in New York are constantly changing. They call New York the melting pot
Yes.
because so many people live there, and we all get along as long as no one stirs the pot.
No one stirs the pot. So
Yeah,
no one stirs the pot, meaning as a black man walking down the street, you cannot make a pass at a white Italian girl. Is that correct?
that is pretty much correct.
Okay. So now we got the scenarios all situated. Did you? So what was the reaction or interaction between the as a young black man or boy or man walking down the street, and is the other people were nice or they're not nice or they're just indifferent?
Well, some people were very nice. I mean, I have quite a few good friends, and wound up with quite a few mob friends and things like that. And other people were not. But I came from an area where it was very gang related and very rough. So I came in with pretty much street credit, as they call it.
Oh, so
So
you came in there with the street credit.
yeah,
Now, did the mob try to recruit you or any of your friends?
uh, kind of we fell into it. We had what they call the junior mafia,
Yes,
which is if your dad or uncles or something was in the mob, then their nephews and sons were expected to be in the mob when they grew up and got older. And the mob doesn't really recruit kids, okay? They don't really recruit you under the age of 18, 20, something like that, because of the fact that you cannot go to jail and you cannot be held responsible for several things. So therefore, they will have no leverage on you.
I see.
But 18, of course, they have leverage on you. So if they wanted to recruit you at that point, then they would. But we had what they call junior mafias, which is everybody knows his dad is in, and sooner or later he will be in. And so they acted like hoods and mobsters, and these were my friends.
Oh,
These are out with.
now you also talked about in your brief biodata a little bit about Vietnam. Now, Vietnam was raging. Even it affected the presidents and Secretary of State and everybody else. They all resigned and all kinds of other problems. Now, did you have anything to do with Vietnam? Did you join the military, or that was not in the cards?
I lucked out.
You looked.
Vietnam War ended the year I turned 18.
Oh,
Just before I turned 18, the war actually ended. They stopped the draft. I went down to my recruiter.
now that
And,
means in 1973 or 74 it ended?
yeah, it ended in like 74, 75.
Okay.
So yeah, so I turned 18 in like 75. It ended in the spring, I think, of 75. So I remember them pulling troops out of Vietnam, and of course the whole Vietnam War affected us because we were watching the war on TV unfold.
Right.
Many friends went to the war. I know many people who went into the war. I know many people who dodged the war. So it was a very big influence on life here in the United States because, as you know, Vietnam was not a popular war. Uh,
Absolutely. Well, no wars are popular. Perhaps even
but
Second World
if
War is not
by the means
popular.
of popular, some wars are more supported.
So some are
You know,
more supported.
World War
Correct.
II, everybody saw a reason for World War II.
Right.
And,
That's what I was. That's exactly what I was going to say. Okay.
yeah, and even in the Afghanistan, even in the Iraq War, the Gulf Wars, people saw a reason for being there. By the time Vietnam and the 60s rolled around, people didn't see the reason for being there. We had no real clear cut idea of what we wanted to do, how we wanted to do it, how were we going to get out, what was our plan for Vietnam and the Vietnamese, and sooner or later it just, as you know, disintegrated into this great debacle and debate, especially here with our people being there. And what I always say, TV ruined the Vietnam War. It
TV.
even ruined the Vietnam War because people weren't so up against it until they started actually seeing what happens in war.
Well, you see, around the later part of 1960s, they had Woodstock. Now,
right?
apparently, you were a little too young for it.
Nope. I tried to go to Woodstock.
And what happened?
uh, my mom was very much into music, and my family was very much into music. So I grew up on rock and roll, blues, soul, everything. I went to concerts from the time I was old enough to pretty much walk, I guess. So we
Okay.
were going to shows and everything. And when Woodstock came around, I was living up in the northern part of the Bronx, and I had told my friends we can go as long as we can convince our parents that one of our parents were going to let us go, then the other parents would fall in line. So I knew my mom would be okay if I told her I wanted to go to this show. I knew she wouldn't. I was going to invite her to go, but I knew she wouldn't go because of the fact that it was an outdoor concert. We were going to be camping out. My mom is not the camping type.
Right. Okay. So that okay. So you missed out on Woodstock, but of course there are a lot of videos and other things that you see to till today you can see those on YouTube. Now, 1960s were also critical for the sexual revolution. Did you miss out on it?
Not at all. Part of gang banging back in the day had nothing to do with guns. It
Oh,
was all, and my gang, like there were gangs in the South Bronx that was into robbing and into beating each other up and everything. My gang was into finding girls
okay.
and answering the women.
S- s-
So
So
we had,
that was a much better approach to having a gang hanging around in the South Bronx than having guns and then trying to shoot each other.
yeah,
That's pretty good. So in other words, what you are saying is you are able to participate in the most important aspect of the American life in the 60s and early 70s, sexual revolution. So the reason I'm asking all these questions, James, is you wrote a couple of books, and I read through those books, and it looks like a lot of things that happened in those era had a significant impact on what you are writing. Is that a right statement?
yes, especially when you think about Killer with a Heart, this book,
Okay.
the crime novel.
Yes. Can you, yeah,
Yes,
show it to our audience? Just raise it up a little bit to the other
yeah.
side. Yeah, there you
Can you
go.
see that?
Yeah,
Okay,
we can see
hold
it.
on. There you
Hmm.
go. The thing with the glare is always killer.
Okay.
But the Killer with the Heart novel is about the mob and about gangs. It's about the sexual um, interplay between young people. This is the first book in a series of books. There are going to be four books out of the series, and this starts off with them being teenagers.
Uh-huh.
Um, Mojo Johnson is the black kid from the South Bronx. Nicky Nails is the Italian junior mobster from the North Bronx. They get together and they form a gang of interracial, interrelated people, Irish, Spanish, Italian, black, like that. So they get together and they form this gang and they knock off a mob money uh, drop. So they rob the mob, and in order to rob the mob, they get Nikki. Nikki gets Mojo to romance the mob boss's daughter.
Okay. The Mojo Morrison, is that what it is? Or
Yeah,
uh,
Mojo Morrison, Mojo Johnson.
Johnson,
Actually, his name
yes.
is Morris Johnson, which is
Okay.
where the name Mojo comes from.
Okay. What is the inspiration from the Doors music? I believe it's what is the name of that song that you have incorporated?
Oh, L.A. Woman,
L.A. Woman.
L.A.
So,
Woman. Yes,
how
Mr.
is
Mojo Rising.
yes? What is the relationship between the two?
Uh, well, the Doors was a very big band back in the '60s, and they were very much into the sexual revolution, and they were very much into cultural revolution. So, L.A. Woman was Jim Morrison's idea of a blues song. He wanted a blues band. They were pretty much a rock and roll band, but
Okay.
he wanted this blues band. And L.A. Woman, and in the L.A. Woman, he sang Mr. Mojo Rising. It's Mr. Mojo Rising. So the fact that I named my character Mojo, Morris Johnson, which was short for Morris Johnson, and I related it to the fact that that Morris Johnson loved the Doors and loved the idea of that song, "L.A. Woman."
Okay. So what we are going to do, ladies and gentlemen, since he brought it up, well, and he has actually written a little bit about that in his book. This is the second book, The Killer of the Heart. I'm sorry,
Yeah, "Killer with a Heart."
Killer with the Heart. Let's listen to this little music here, and then when we come back, we will continue talking about the book and see where we can find the Killer of the Heart book. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Global Radio and TV Live. Our featured guest is James Hill. We will be right back. James, please stay on the line.
Of course.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Global Radio and TV Live. You heard that song from Doors, The LA Woman, a starting point for one of James Hill's book. And we are very pleased to play this song. It bring back the old memories to you, James.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. They're not that old. I still play that song.
Oh, okay. Well, our audience all over the world, some of them may have never heard this song, so I thought it is my duty to go ahead and play that song and re-familiarize with them, and also for the new audience, they should know how it sounded in those 60s and 70s. All right, coming back to this book, Killer with a Heart. Tell us a little bit more about this book. What was the plot? How it was set up, and more importantly, towards the end, you can also tell our audience where they can find this book.
Okay. The reason behind the book was, like I said, it's the first book in a series. So I wanted the book to start you off with how these people get together and what really makes a crime or a criminal, how real criminals actually become what they are. A lot of times you hear about these mobsters and these criminals, and you hear people say, "Oh, he was such a nice guy. I never knew." And yes, you never really do know because a lot of people are very nice people personally. They are very bad people business wise and with other things they do. Um, so Morris, Mojo, he came out of a very bad situation. He came out of the South Bronx. He came out of a war zone. So he is a warrior. He is a killer. Um, Nails, Nicky Nails, he's more of a businessman. He comes up in the mob where it's all business. Just the same bad type of influences, but for him, it's not a personal thing. For him, it's a business thing. He sets up this robbery because he feels that this other mob family is encroaching upon his territory. He does it for respect. Morris does it because he gets involved with the girl. They said they want him to not actually romance the girl, but to just keep her busy while they can sneak in and rob this place. He starts talking to her. He gets involved with her. He takes it all the way, makes love to the girl. Now he's marked for death. When they try to kill him, he takes that personally,
Okay.
and therefore a war ensues. And these two kids, and the fact is that they are kids, they're in their teens, high schoolers. The rest of the world, mobs and police and everybody else, doesn't see them as a danger that they really are. And they are very dangerous people because they don't have the idea of remorse or whatever. Because as young people, we don't really have that idea yet. We
Correct.
don't really consider consequences. We consider ourselves invincible. And some people never grow out of that. And some people don't have the wherewithal to say. And so he's not psychotic. He's a sociopath. The difference being a psychotic doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. A sociopath don't really care.
They still do know the difference between, but as a sociopath, you are absolutely right. They don't care. They just do whatever they want to do. Important distinction. There is one scene at the early part of that book that I was reading it, and I thought it was pretty fascinating. I believe the mob guys picked him up, and then they put him in a car, and they were driving over to a spot where they're going to practically kill him, right? And
Oh yeah.
how he escaped out of it. That particular scene, describe to our audience just that scene, and see how well you have constructed that scene was pretty amazing. Because if you somebody goes there and makes a movie out of this, and all probabilities it will be a fantastic scene. It'll be one of those catchy scenes that you wanted to see again and again. How this guy escapes out of this. Tell our audience about that particular scene, and then we will move on to the other book. What is that scene is about, and give us a perspective. And as a matter of fact, you also would like to. Our audience would like to know after you set this scene up and tell exactly what went on in that car and how the car rolled and everything else, who you want to in the Hollywood play as Mojo. Who would you like? So maybe you can answer it in any order you want.
Okay. Let me set the scene up for you.
Okay.
Like I said, Mojo romances Elizabeth, which is the mob boss's daughter. So he romances her. He makes love to her. They rob the place, and of course, the mob boss know that the kids are hanging around his daughter, knowing that they're hanging around his deli shop. A deli shop is a sandwich place, a little store. So they grab Morris. They can't grab Nicky because Nicky is connected. So they grab Morris because he's the black guy. He's not connected to the mob as so to speak. So they grab him. They take him to the mob boss's house, and they're beating him up pretty good to get the information out of him about robbing the house, about robbing the money. And in the middle of all this, his daughter starts yelling about how he didn't do it, he wasn't involved, he was with me, I love him.
Uh huh.
Uh, so right away, the mob boss is now even more furious with him and orders his men to take him out, kill him, cut off his, you know what?
Yeah. Cut off. Yeah.
Yeah, stick it in his mouth and dump him in a garbage dump because they're going to bury him up in a garbage dump, so it'll never be found. This is called being taken for a ride by the mob. You probably heard the term before,
Yes.
being taken for a ride.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, if you're being taken for a ride, you're never coming back. So after they take him out, they put him in a car with these four other mobsters, two guys in the front, two guys in the back. Your classic mob looking guy, one very big, fat, heavy guy, muscle guy, another guy looking very sharp, well dressed, impeccable taste. Couple other guys up front. And they're arguing with him and they're telling them, tell us where the money is, give us the money, we'll kill you, but we won't do everything that the guy said. We'll kill you, we'll dump you on the street somewhere, Your family will find you. They'll be able to bury you, rather than us dumping you in the dump in a garbage dump and no one ever finding you. So he's playing. Morris is playing kind of like the weak. Oh, I'm so afraid. I didn't do anything. I was only there for the girl. I'm in love with the girl. I'm a young kid. You know how it is to be in love with, to be young again. And they're all arguing. They're all fighting with him. They're all yelling at him. So they hit him again, and he makes like he's going to throw up on the guy in shiny, who I call shiny shoes, because he's all polished. So they hit him. He makes like he's going to throw up on this guy. The reason why he does it because he wants to go for the guy's gun that's strapped to his ankle. So when he makes like he's getting ready to throw up on the guy jerks out the way. He dives down, pulls the guy's gun out. Now they're in a bulletproof limousine. So he dives into the floor of the limousine and starts shooting. Right? He got the mobster gun now. He's shooting at the mobsters in the car. The other mobsters are now trying to shoot him, but they can't. And the bullets are ricocheting around the car. And of course, these other guys are getting hit because he's laying on the car. And finally, Mojo realizes I should take out the driver and fires through the back of the seat. So he shoots the driver in the back and causes the car to crash. And a little something for your listeners. The original title of the book was going to be called Bulletproof because he escapes death in a bulletproof limousine. And so his nickname in the book becomes Bulletproof.
I see. Well, interesting because bulletproof is meaning the person sitting inside the car is protected by a bulletproof windows. But in this case, the shooting is actually taking place inside the bulletproof car, and the guy is inside. So it's an ironic situation here. Very interesting. All right. So the interesting question I was going to ask you next is, who should play this role in the Hollywood movie? I think correct me if I'm wrong, James. The book is good. There's no question about it. Now, one of these days, when somebody is going to listen to this show, and somebody from the West Coast might say, "Wait a minute, let's read this book." And so, I want you to tell these potential producers who you want to play as a hero, Morris. Mojo Johnson. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I was thinking Will Smith's son. By the time they make the movie, he'll be old enough to play the young Morris.
The young Morris, okay.
He'll be able to play the young Morris. I'm trying to think of who would make a good teenage Morris, a little older Morris. And by the way, I did pitch this book to a couple of movie people.
Okay, what did they say?
They said it was a very dark story.
Dark story? Well, I mean, they got stories in Hollywood that are much darker than this.
Yes, that's what I said. It's not that dark. It is pretty dark, but then again, it's a crime novel. It's supposed to be dark, yes. Yeah. I don't really know that many actors and actresses by name. I know them by face and everything, and I like different people. Well, I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay, you have to get back to me on that. Okay, what we are going to do, we are going to take a quick break here. And before that, I wanted to ask you about your next book. The name of the book is Pegasus: A Journey to New Eden. This particular book is a sci-fi novel, correct?
That is correct.
Before we get into it, we are going to take a quick short break, and we are going to during the break we are going to play music. This music will lead right into the book Pegasus: A Journey to New Eden. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Global Radio and TV Live. I am your host, Dr. Ravi. The number to call is 469-307-1642. And you are also listening to our featured guest, James Hill. He's going to come back and tell us about his next book. And also we are going to find out where we can find those books and close the show in about 30 minutes. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back. James, please stay on the line.
Yes, sir.
in the light. You will find the road. You will find the road. Hey, ooh, did you ever believe that I could leave you standing out in the cold? Hey, yeah, baby, I know how it feels 'cause I have slipped through to the very depths of my soul, yeah. Oh, oh, baby, I just wanna show you what it can do. The kiss from every bend in the road. Now listen. Oh, whoa, whoa. As I was relieved to be for you too, honey, as you would for me. Oh, I will show your love. Let me show your love. Ooh, let me share your love.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Global Radio and TV Live. You are listening to James Hill, our featured guest, and we were playing that Led Zeppelin song. And as I was reading through his second book, Journey to New Eden, that particular verse from Led Zeppelin song was on the very beginning, on the very first page. So, James, welcome back to our third segment. Why did you put this particular song over there?
Okay, In the Light is a song about hope and about love and about somebody doing what they can for the other person, all that they can for the other person. So it starts with, if you ever feel like you're sinking low and you feel that you can't go on, just believe and you will find the road. In the light, you will find the road. So the Pegasus, and let me show you the cover real quick.
Yes.
Because I really like this
the
cover.
other way, yeah, there you go. The other way.
The other way.
Move it, yeah, there it is.
There you go. Okay. I really like this cover, and the reason why is because I got the picture from NASA, and it's called the Heart and Soul Nebula.
Okay.
So when I was looking for a cover for the book, I found the Heart and Soul Nebula, and that is what the Pegasus: A Journey to New Eden is about. It's about a journey that these two people take that bind their heart and soul to each other. To give you a little history behind it, this book was written back in the late 70s, when there was the talk of detente, nuclear disarmament, things like that. And my wife asked me at the time, and by the way, that very first part, it was dedicated to my children at the time.
Okay.
That I would be inspiration to them. I will do whatever I had to do for them. And that's why I put that in there. In the light, you will find the road. That I would be their light, and they will find the road through this life.
In this book, you are talking about a company called the United Space Industries, USI. And, that is a very interesting name you came up with. And you are also saying by in another 20, 30 years, there is a possibility of us expanding into the space and setting space colonies. Now, based upon all we have seen so far with the International Space Station and everything else, this is a very highly likely scenario. So I really like the fact that you are able to expand the current scientific ideas as to what is possible and then make it into a science fiction novel where you are showing or demonstrating how it is possible to live in a space in the space And that's where the whole problem comes up, which I found very interesting. What is the role of politics in this, and what is the role of science in this? Because you have very nicely mixed the politics and science, and made a very, it's a very scary scenario that I found. Originally, the space was used for as a penal colony. They used to send them to Australia. Now they're going to send them to the space. All the felons. So tell us, our audience, how did you set up the theme for this particular book?
That's quite right. The idea behind my sci-fi novels and my sci-fi writing is how does the science and how does the technology affect the way people live and behave. And as you mentioned, that we have the colony that we set up to deal with the people that we don't want around anymore. So for at one point it was Australia. They shipped off people to Australia. They shipped off people to South America, things like that. America was found because of the fact that they didn't want the Puritans around, and they shipped them off to America. So
Well, yeah. I thought the Puritans came by their own evolution. Huh? Apparently not.
no, no, actually, they had to leave. They had to leave
They had
England
to leave.
because they were against the common practices of the crown and of the government. So they were making too much trouble for them, and they said, well, you know what? Why don't y'all go over there and settle in America? You'll still be part of the government, and you're still going to pay taxes to us, but we don't have to deal with you. And that's how they actually wound up sending people to America. Again, ostracizing people. So in the book Pegasus, and of course Pegasus in the Greek is inspiration. He's the spirit of inspiration. And the muses, one of the Greek stories is that Pegasus hooves touched ground on some mountain, and there's a well that springs up there, and from that well springs the muses, which are poetry, music, and art.
Art.
Okay, yeah. So there's all of that that's tied into this whole idea that in the future, governments and companies are going to kind of like merge into this. Well, we have that coming up today, where you have these gigantic global companies which are now really running governments and directing the politics of nations. And I wrote this book back in the 70s, actually. Like I said, when my wife asked me about the whole idea behind the fall of, as Russia hadn't fallen yet, or the Soviet Union hadn't fallen yet, but they were talking about getting rid of nuclear weapons. And she asked me, what did I think about disarmament? And I told her, we're not going to wind up in a nuclear war with a major nation against another major nation because they're too tied together by business.
Right. Exactly. That is interesting point, because as I was reading through your book, I realized what you are saying there is the companies that belong that are running this United Space Industries are the people who are running it. You are saying that they're already bought out all the politicians. It's all corrupt government, and they are running the country. They are running livelihood. And you also rightfully pointed out what could be possible if this current trend continues, which I found was fascinating. By 2050, there will be a huge number of poor people, less than average poor people, and then there is a very small percentage of super rich. And the super rich is not only going to control the earth, but also they are going to control the space. Okay, and this is quite a good probability. So tell our audience, how did you get this idea?
Oh, just by looking at the way things were going at the time, and I'm kind of proud of Pegasus because when I wrote the book, everybody said it was kind of far-fetched and that would not happen.
It is not.
The Soviet Union was going to be there forever, and I was like, these things change, and the change is going to come, and businesses are going to take over, and business has no soul. They're into making money, and and what's going to happen is, and these things happen. I mean, you have cycles. You have the Industrial Revolution where people move from farms to big cities and factories. And did the people who moved to the factories and stuff get treated well? No, they did not. The people who owned the factories and stuff made huge amounts of money. The people who worked in the factory were being killed by the work they were doing. And these cycles continue. You know, life is a cycle. It goes around. So now we're moving into the space age, and somebody's going to find a way to exploit that. And by exploiting space, they are actually exploiting people, because that's where the exploitation always comes down to.
Well,
It's
so in other words, they were exploiting people in the villages, then they're exploiting people in the modern cities. Now they're going to move the people up to the space and exploit them over there.
yes,
So this is going to be just an exploitation. Now, interesting because based upon everything I have seen so far, the politicians, not only in this country, in all the countries all over, are already sold to the rich people, already sold to the corporations. And that is, you have clearly written, United Space Industries is already bought out all the politicians. All politicians are corrupt. There's no question they are corrupt now, today, as of today. And it's only going to get worse as the time goes on. So it's a very fantastic novel. So what is exactly, without giving out the how this story ends, the Pegasus, a journey to New Eden, without giving out the end, what are the other things that were happening there?
okay. So in Pegasus, what they do is they build this spaceship. They find a way. They finally get a light drive, a warp drive, light speed. In space, you can't go anywhere unless you can go faster than the speed of light. In sci-fi, you can't cross the galaxy and stuff like that without being able to go faster than the speed of light, because it would take forever to get someplace, and therefore it wouldn't be worth going.
Correct.
Uh, so they finally developed their warp drive, their light speed drive, and they're going to go to the nearest planet, 40 light years away, to the Alpha Centauri system. And of course, now we're finding out that there are planets around these other stars, and we have the Hubble spacecraft,
Telescope.
space telescope,
Hmm.
that they're actually detecting these other planets. So for years, everybody was like, well, this is the only planet. And it's like, no, it can't be the only planet. First off, there's 9 planets here, 8 if you don't count Pluto anymore. But, so these 8 planets, whether you believe in God, don't believe in God, whatever you believe in, you got to realize these 8 planets can't be it in the vast universe. There can't be just 8 planets. So they find this other planet. They don't know what's on the other planet, but they're going to send this ship there, and they're going to settle it, because now they want to step off out of Earth itself, out of the whole idea of being around the Earth and being tied to the Earth. And the company is going to claim a planet now. So it's no longer building the colonies and owning the people in the colonies. Now they're going to own a planet. So they're going to send people to that planet. They're going to give them some kind of shady land deal where they get a little bit of land for their time and trouble, but the planet will be owned by the company that sent them there.
Oh,
And
so
there's a
they're
little darker secret behind Pegasus. I'm not going to give that away,
right.
but it's sort of like a Noah Ark. They're going to gather up everything you need from Earth
Okay.
and take it there and transplant it to this other planet, because you're not going to make the trip back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a 4-year trip. You're taking everything you want with you, and so that's the idea of Pegasus. It's the inspiration of going further and going into the other world. Now, because of this, other people decide they want to shift too. And of course, when you have a new technology, you have this new type of information and things, people are going to try to make a grab for it.
Right.
They're going to for themselves.
Yeah,
So
no, I was going through the life in that planet, how people will be living in that planet, because now you see that planet, or even the space center that the USI has created, United Space Industry has created, which is, I believe you have a 50,000 or 500,000 mile radius beyond which they are autonomous entities.
right.
So they don't have to report to any kind of government on the earth, correct? What was that mileage you showed there? 50,000 miles?
I think that's halfway between Earth and Moon.
So 150,000 miles.
Yeah,
Ah.
it's like 150,000. I think what I put in the book now,
Yeah.
but it puts you about halfway to the moon.
Okay, halfway to the moon. Now, the interesting thing is that in that planet, once the people get out there, the USI, the space industry, has total control over them.
Correct.
I mean, their life from beginning to end is
Right.
totally controlled.
It's like they're going to set up their own little no, because the people who move there are
Yeah,
going to be able to form their own little government.
yeah.
They're going to get so much land, they can form whatever kind of government they want there.
But
But
again,
the
that will
rest of the
be
planet,
totally controlled by the corporation.
right? But the rest of the planet will be controlled by the corporation. So let's say me and you go there.
Yeah,
We get something the size of, I don't know. I'm in Virginia right now, so we get a piece of land the size of Virginia. You get a piece of land the size of wherever you live at. You're king in your land.
I see.
You make whatever laws you want. You can control whatever. The rest of the planet belongs to USI. They get to say what they want to do. They can sell it off as they well please.
See, here's what I found. The life in such a planet or such a space center would be very similar to what we have seen in that movie called The Truman Show. Now I want to play that. I know they're not paying me anything, but I think that whatever you are saying, it will be very identical to this particular one. Let's play this and see what happens to that guy whose entire life was in the camera of a TV show.
Right.
Let's listen to this.
What else is on?
Yeah, let's see what else is.
Coming to you now from the largest studio ever constructed, it's The Truman Show!
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
What if?
No scripts, no cue cards.
Morning, Spencer. How's it going?
What if you were watched every moment of your life?
How many cameras you got there in that town?
5,000.
I believe Truman is the first child to have been legally adopted by a corporation.
That's correct.
Brilliant.
What if everyone you knew was pretending?
Hi, honey. Look what I got at the checkout. Dishwasher safe.
That's amazing.
What if your world was make-believe?
Cue the sign. While the world he inhabits is counterfeit,
I'm not allowed to talk to you.
that's how I look. Not your type. There's nothing fake about Truman himself.
What if you didn't know it? Until now.
A lot of strange things have been happening.
Stand by ring cam.
Is he looking at us?
Does he think he knows?
I think I'm mixed up in something. Something big.
We accept the reality with which we're presented.
Everybody's pretending, Truman. Get out of here. Come and find me. Truman?
Anything happen?
No.
You may find yourself in another part of the world.
It's like the whole world revolves around me. Everybody seems to be in on it.
I'm going away for a while.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. That particular story has, in a different sense. James, would you agree that whatever
Yes.
we saw in that Truman Show is really a possibility if whatever you have written in your book becomes a reality?
Yes, and it's
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
okay, and it's very very much like that on the ship of Pegasus itself. Pegasus is the name of the ship that they're on. So, in the ship itself is very much like that because everything on the ship is controlled by the computer, by the ship's guidance system, computer system. So all life on the ship is controlled and is monitored and is regulated. And in Pegasus, only 2 people actually are on the ship as regular passengers. Because of what happened, because of them trying to grab the ship, these 2 people are launched into space, and they think that they're on their way to New Eden, and they don't want to go as being just the only 2 humans to go to this planet. They had no intentions of being the only people on this planet. They were planning to be part of this whole team of people that was going, this whole group of people that was going. Thousands of people were supposed to be going, and now all of a sudden it's just them 2. And that's where the psychology of it all comes in. The psychology of survival, the psychology of they are supposed to be getting married, so they were going to be a family, but how much do you do for the other person? How much do you love the other person? What are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice the other person? And that becomes are you willing to sacrifice yourself? Everybody will say, yeah, I'll take a bullet for you. I'll jump on a sword for you. Are you willing to sacrifice the other person for life
Yes.
and to go on? And that's a big part of what Pegasus is about, because of the fact that they're in this whole controlled type of universe now, this type of world that is controlled by other people, by more powerful people, and these people don't have your best interests at heart. And now all of a sudden you're alone and you're trapped in this environment. You have to take control of this environment, and that's what Pegasus is all about. Taking control of your life, of your environment, and making it better, bringing back humanity into a technical, cold world.
Okay. And the two books, I see that they are available at www.jlhill-books.com.
Yes,
Are
you can
they
get the ebooks from my website. That's my website.
As an ebook from your website. As a matter of fact, I was able to download them from your website that you sent me. The jhill-books.com, jhill-books.com is the name of the website. And now, question is this book, are these two books available in any of the other places like Amazon.com or local bookstores?
Yes, they're available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. They're available through all the usual online outlets. So yes, and you can get them in paperback from the online outlets like Amazon and Barnes and Noble, places like that. If you go to like in Barnes and Noble and request it, they can get it for you from there too. So you can order it to your local bookstore, and they can get it from there too.
All right. Could you please go ahead and show both books one at a time to our audience, and tell us. Move to the other side. No.
Which way? Let's see. There we go.
There we go.
I gotta figure out which way the camera points on this thing. All right.
So Pegasus, A Journey to New Eden. This book is available at www.jlhill-books.com. Okay, and what is the price on this book? How much does it cost?
Both books are in paperback form, $19.99.
$19.99. Okay.
Yeah,
and
in the paperback
you
form.
can get a much better price with the
if
Kindle.
you go ebooks.
Okay.
Yes. And if you go to my website, it's even a better price. I give you the discount by going directly to my website and buying it directly from me, because I don't have to pay Amazon.
Well, if somebody wants to get a copy of this book, Killer with a Heart, will they be able to get an autograph if they buy through you? How does that work?
Okay, if anybody wants to buy an autographed copy of the book, go to my website. There's a link for connecting to me to get into my, to sending me an email. Send me an email with your name, who you want the book autographed to, in case you want to give it to somebody, and I will send you an autographed copy of the book. It will cost you the same $19.99 that it costs in a store, but you will get that extra 1 cent, which will be my autograph.
Okay, James. So, what are you doing nowadays? I know that you have a series of books coming up on the other one, Pegasus. Are you writing books? How do you make a living? What else do you do?
Actually, I'm a computer programmer by trade, and for the last 20 years or so, I've been working in various places, government, private industry, doing computer programming. I am writing the second book in the Killer with a Heart series, in the Killer series. That should be due out by the end of this year or the beginning of next year. Actually, I'm going to say the beginning of next year because I'm only up to about chapter 10, and there's a few more chapters to go, and then editing and all the kind of stuff that people don't realize go into making a book. And I am launching my own publishing company. So I will be publishing the next book in the Killer series totally myself. These are self-published, but they're published through another publishing company. I'm starting a publishing company called Rock Hill Publishing, and I got my nephew actually design the logo for me now. He's a very good artist. I encouraged him to go into art, and I'm glad he took up I'm glad he took my advice and went into art because he's a very good artist. So he's doing my logo for me as we speak, and I'm going to launch my publishing company with my book. It's going to be called Killer with Three Heads. So look for that. That's coming out soon. You can look for me on places like Wattpad and things like that. I do short stories. I do other stories that I put out there for free. So if you go to a site called Wattpad.com and look for me, you'll find some stories I got out there for that.
Very nice. So, best of luck with with the new publishing company, and that's a tough job, and a lot of work has to go into it, starting from very beginning to end. You have to take part of but at the same time, you end up making all the profit for yourself, so you can concentrate on other ideas. That's very very good. So you are a computer programmer. What language do you program?
Let's see. I done VB, Visual Basic,
Uh-huh.
.NET, C Sharp, C++. I done Oracle. I done SQL. I done ASP. I done a lot of them.
So that means you must be in demand now. You remember there was a big scare in the Millennium Crisis where in 2000 that all the bank software are going to go to hell. Okay, so I was put on hold here. Let's see what we have here. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a little problem here. We will have to be right back. If I don't hear back from James, what we will do, we will... Yeah, there you are. Can you see me, James?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I'm back again.
You're back again.
People always call it the most inopportune time.
Yeah.
Just so that your audience know, I'm doing this on my cell phone.
Yeah.
Because cell phones are so powerful now. This is even better than my computer.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah,
So-
it's pretty clear. It's pretty good, really good. So we were talking about the Millennium Crisis. Were you asked to do some programming because you remember that was COBOL programming, right?
With COBOL program, I know COBOL. Done that back in the day.
Okay.
And I did some Millennium programming with mainly what it was. And for people who don't know, when the programming was originally set up, no one went with the 4-digit year because everybody only thought ahead to 1999. No one ever realized, okay, what happened when we hit the year 2000? And we can't use 01 as a date because that means 1901.
Correct. Yes. Our 00 becomes 1900.
So they had to figure out, we had to go from a 2-digit year to a 4-digit year, which is pretty much what the whole Millennium Crisis was about. And of course, the big scare was that all the world was stopped,
So that did not happen, and unfortunately that didn't happen. Very good. All right. So any final parting thoughts? And when are we going to get the next book? You said the
this year.
Okay. All right. So there is still some sound problem there. Let's see if we can hear you. James, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right, James. This 1 hour has passed pretty quick. We have only a minute left. In that last minute, we want you to tell our audience one more time where they can find the book, and then we will close the show.
Okay, you can get it from Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. You can get ebooks from my website, which is jlhill-books with an S.com, all one word. If you go to my website and order the book, you can get them at a discount price. You can get the ebooks at a discount price. I take off some of the price that would have went to Amazon and things like that, so you can get them for pretty much what they should cost. But if you want an autographed copy of the book, send me an email. Go to my website. There's a link there to contact me. Send me an email. I'll arrange to get you an autographed copy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to James Hill. His two books were Killer with a Heart and Pegasus, A Journey to New Eden. James, thank you so much for joining us today.
Doctor, thank you for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back. James, please stay on the line for a couple of more minutes.